Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a Diablo 3 patch 2.7 season 23 Necromancer build guide. This season saw the rework of the Necromancer's Rathma set, taking it from something that pretty much didn't see any more use into something that is actually decently strong. Furthermore, Rathma will be the starter set for Necromancers in season 23. In this video, we're gonna go over the skills, the gear, the follower, and the playstyle that you'll want to get the most out of Rathma. The gameplay footage you're seeing was recorded by top player and maxroll.gg content lead Rob, and you can follow along with the written version of this guide written by Udijo on maxroll.gg, link in the description. Now let's start by taking a look at the revised Rathma set, and we'll state that the major change is that this build is no longer a skeletal mage build. It's a minion build, but your minions are supporting you, dealing crazy damage with Army of the Dead or Bone Spear. This will be the Army of the Dead version, which is the more powerful version of the build. So the two-piece bonus, your permanent minions, thus excluding skeletal mages, reduce the cooldown of Army of the Dead by half a second each time they deal damage. Your skeletal warriors spawn faster, and your revived minions no longer expire. We're working revive now into the build and into the game. So Army of the Dead is a big nuke. Huge cooldown for huge damage. This half-second attack means we want to have lots of minions attacking very quickly to reduce that cooldown to nuke again and again and again. Then the four-piece, your minions no longer take damage. You gain 1% damage reduction for 15 seconds each time one of your minions deal damage, max 75 stacks. Another reason that we want to have lots of minions attacking a lot, to have a maximum number of stacks here for 75% damage reduction. Then the six-piece bonus. Each permanent active minion increases the damage of Army of the Dead and Bone Spirit by 500% up to 9,000%. We're gonna have 17 active minions with this build. That's 10 revives, the maximum number of revives, plus 7 command skeletons. 17 times 500 takes us up to 8,500, so we're just shy of the max. We could, if we really want to, squeeze in that extra little bit, but with this setup, it's not going to be necessary. Now let's continue with an overview of the rest of the gear we're going to want with this build. We're going to work in the Zaeith set. This will make your command skeletons automatically retarget when their target dies. But more importantly, 400% damage multiplier while command skeleton is actively targeting something. Next, very important in our cube, we're going to take Fate's Vow Helm. Army of the Dead deals an additional 250% damage and gains the effect of the Unconventional Warfare rune. Unconventional Warfare is a heavy-hitting, high-damage rune for Army of the Dead, and we're getting it for free. And that 250% damage multiplier is a huge damage buff. Next, we're going to work in a Crisbin's Sentence, such a powerful Necromancer ring. You deal double damage to slowed enemies and triple this bonus to enemies afflicted by any other type of control impairing effect. So if we stun enemies, we are dealing a huge amount more damage to them. Next, we're going to take the new bracers, the Bonds of Kalina. Army of the Dead deals 100% increased damage, or double this bonus, against an active target of command skeletons. This makes it especially potent against single target, i.e. the Rift Guardian. Next, we'll work in the Captain Crimson set. We need a lot of cooldown for this build. We want to be popping Army of the Dead as often as possible, since that's our major damage source. So the two-piece bonus gives us 20% cooldown reduction, 20% resource cost reduction, and then the three-piece increases your damage based on how much cooldown you have, and reduces your damage taken based on how much resource cost reduction you have. Then to benefit from all these different sets, we're going to use a Ring of Royal Grandeur in our cube. This reduces the number of items needed for set bonuses by 1. As a reminder folks, Ring of Royal Grandeur, you're going to want to farm that from Act 1 bounty bags. You cannot get that as a random world drop or from Kadala. We're also going to work in a Squirt's Necklace. While not taking damage, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%, and damage taken is increased by up to 50%. And lastly, we'll use a Convention of Elements. This will be a poison-based build, so whenever the convention rotates through poison, we're going to get a big damage buff. And then lastly in our cube, we're going to also take a Nair's Black Death. Huge damage multiplier, but you need to pick skills around dealing poison damage. Each different poison skill you use increases the damage of your poison skills by 100% for 15 seconds. So on that note, let's now look at our skills. We'll come back to the gear for exactly what you want on every piece. Starting with the star, Army of the Dead. We're going to take the Blighted Grasp rune, Poison, pair with our Nair's Black Death. This skill has a 2-minute cooldown, but we'll be popping this very often thanks to how many minions we're going to have and that half-second cooldown reduction every time our minions hit a target. Combined, of course, with the massive amount of cooldown reduction we'll be stacking. Next, we're taking Command Skeletons, of course. Now, you might assume we'd be taking the Poison rune, but we're actually going to take the Frenzy rune. This gives them 25% increased attack speed, which allows them to hit targets faster, thus building up your 4-piece stacks faster and reducing the cooldown on Army of the Dead faster. Turns out you benefit more from just being able to cast Army of the Dead more often than from that extra damage multiplier on Nair's Black Death. Next, we're taking Revive, Poison rune, Horrific Return. Has an unfortunate consequence though. Horrific Return will fear enemies, i.e. it'll make them run away from you, which is annoying because you don't want them to run away from you, you want them to die. So ideally, you actually want to be casting Revive on targets that are not near the targets that you want to kill. We're going to take Grim Scythe, Cursed Scythe, Generator, and Poison. This also gives enemies a 15% chance to be inflicted with a random curse. The Necro's curses are pretty good, so this works nicely with the build. For our last poison skill, we're taking Bone Armor Dislocation. And the other benefit of the Dislocation rune is the stun, that hard CC that will activate the ultimate bonus of our Crispin's Sentence ring. And then lastly, we're taking Blood Rush Potency. This is for mobility as well as for a huge toughness buff. For our passives, we'll take Grisly Tribute. You're healed for 10% of your life on hit when one of your minions hits an enemy, which should be happening constantly and frequently. We'll take Eternal Torment. Your curses cost 50% less essence and last forever. While we're not taking any active curses, when you're pushing high GRs, fights will tend to last long, particularly against Rift Guardians. 15% chance to apply on every hit. You want to get those 3 curses applied to the Rift Guardian as quickly as possible and then not have to worry too much about it. Then Spreading Malediction. Receive a 1% damage bonus for each enemy afflicted by one of your curses. When you get a nice screen full of monsters and you're applying those curses, that's going to add up to a nice damage buff. Then for the last one, you can either go with Swift Harvesting or Final Service. Swift Harvesting will let you attack faster with Grim Scythe, thus letting you apply curses faster, but Final Service gives you that extra life. Now, as for exactly what you want on every piece of gear, on your shoulders, Intelligence, Vitality, Cooldown, Area Damage. For your helm, Intelligence, Vitality, Crit Chance, and in your socket, a diamond for cooldown reduction. We're aiming for at least 65% cooldown reduction. On your amulet, Poison, Crit Crit, Gloves, Intelligence, Crit Crit, Cooldown. Your chest, Intelligence, Vitality, Armor. Now in your sockets, in your chest, and your pants, if you want to deal more damage, topazes for intelligence. If you want more toughness, either rubies or emeralds for armor. For your bracers, poison, intelligence, vitality, crit. For your belt, intelligence, vitality, life, armor. Your pants, intelligence, vitality, armor. Your boots, intelligence, vitality, armor, all resist. Your Crispin Sentence, intelligence, crit chance, cooldown reduction. Your convention, crit crit cooldown. For your weapon, intelligence, cooldown, attack speed. Emerald in the socket, of course. For your shield, intelligence, crit chance, cooldown reduction, bonus damage versus elites, and resource cost reduction. For our legendary gems, we're going to take a Bane of the Trapped. Huge damage buff against crowd-controlled enemies. We'll take a Gogok of Swiftness, extra attack speed, and more importantly, extra cooldown, along with some defensive buff. Then lastly, for maximum damage, a Zaeith's Stone of Vengeance. The further you are away from your target, the more damage you deal. If you go with this, you'll want to play around this. You'll want to distance yourself before bringing in that nuke. If you want to go more defensive though, you could instead take an Esoteric Alteration here for more damage reduction and resist. So for the gameplay here, you want to always ensure that Command Skeletons is actively targeting an enemy. That should happen for the most part on its own, but if you ever don't see that little golden border around the icon, pop it, make sure it's up. Army of the Dead again is our major damage nuke. You ideally want to ensure that when you're in your poison rotation on your convention, you are nuking. The perfect time to apply bone armor dislocation to stun enemies is actually right after you activate Army of the Dead, since it takes a bit of time for that damage to come in. Make sure you always have your 10 revives, and then after that you'll still want to cast revive periodically in order to gain your Nair's Black death buff. That'd be once every 15 seconds. Blood Rush to reposition and to keep up your defensive buff on Blood Rush. Whenever you can, use Grim Scythe to be applying curses to enemies, and otherwise just have fun spamming Army of the Dead. For your Paragon point priority, start by getting your move speed up to 25%. Then you can put into Vitality until you have about 800,000 life, then dump into Intelligence. For offense, cooldown reduction first, then attack speed, then crit chance and crit damage, maintaining a global 1-to-10 ratio between the two. For defense, armor, life percent, all resist, life regen. And for utility, area damage, life per hit, resource cost reduction, and pickup radius. For our follower, we will want to go with the Enchantress for cooldown reduction. For her skills, we'll take Temporal Pulse for the slow effect. We need to take Prophetic Harmony for the cooldown reduction, and this again is the entire reason we're taking the Enchantress. We'll take Powered Shield for the damage reduction and the armor it confers, and we'll take Focused Mind for a little bit of attack speed. For her items, we're taking the Immortality Relic. We're giving her a Flavor of Time, which will emanate to us, meaning that it's as though we're equipping this legendary power. So when we click on a pylon, it will double the duration. Same thing with Nemesis Bracers. Emanates to us when we click on a shrine or a pylon. Boom. Spawns a champion. We're giving her an Oculus Ring so that when we kill enemies, there's a chance that it forms a puddle on the ground. You stand in that puddle, you're gonna get 85% increased damage. For her weapon, a Thunder Fury. Chance to CC enemies. For her other ring, either a Unity or a Weird Ward. Weird Ward is for extra crowd control. Unity is for extra defense on yourself, but in that case you would be dropping the convention from yourself and also be equipping a Unity. Therefore, the two of you are sharing a life pool, and because she's invulnerable and can't take damage, this has the effect of just doubling your toughness. We're giving her Ice Climbers to make her immune to Immobilize and Freeze effects. We're giving her Mempo of Twilight, Talrasha's Armor, and Witching Hour for attack speed, attack speed, attack speed, and then 2 Piece of Canes for attack speed. And then lastly, the homing pads, because that emanates to you, so if ever you want to portal out, you will not be interrupted. As for her gearing priorities on her stats, Intelligence. Get Intelligence everywhere you can, on every piece of gear, in every socket, a topaz. And then your secondary priority is attack speed, nothing else matters. And that's gonna wrap up this video guide. But do be sure to have checked out our tier list video on the best builds for Season 23, as well as our fast leveling guide leading into the new season. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.